Good evening. My name's Ben Burkerts, and I co-edit AGNI with Bill Pierce. It was only a minute ago that I wound my memory tape back and realized that we're celebrating issue 97 tonight. The one I began with was 57, so that's 40 issues. You'd think we'd get tired of it, but I'm not. I mean, each time it's a kind of rejuvenatory, if that's a word, someone look it up, a rejuvenatory experience. So I'm welcoming everyone, and we have a tremendous lineup going here. I think thought I want to sort of fix some kind of image or emblem here, and the one that came to me earlier, I was staring at the word launch. I suddenly pictured those old bottles that ship makers patiently, with pinchers and glue and long sticks, assembled a ship, which, if all things went well, the right moment they would pull the string and the thing would go vertical and we would be off. So that's what I'm hoping tonight is pulling that string, watching those sails puff out. And I would like to welcome and introduce Amber Caron, who's going to introduce Anna Mazhirov. And Amber is a fiction editor. I think that's all I need to say at this point. Amber, you're on.
Thank you, Sven. I'm hoping the audience can hear me. I'm Amber Caron, assistant fiction editor at AGNI, and I'm going to start by actually mentioning something that appears late in Sven's opening essay to AGNI 97, when he writes this: I think of so many beginnings to novels, memoirs, essays, and poems that give me the sensation of a door swinging slowly open onto some unknown. I have had the absolute pleasure of reading Anna Mazhirov's story Colors many times, and each time I return to it, I find myself lingering on the first sentence and the way it opens the door onto a friendship that sits at the center of this story. In the first line alone, we're offered not one way to consider this friendship, but four. It is a friendship marked by a difference in age. One friend is little and one already big. It's a friendship marked by power difference. One is a child and the other is a babysitter. It's a friendship of proximity, perhaps even convenience, because one is an only child and the other is a family friend. And finally, it's a friendship marked by rare intimacy. They are friend and only friend. Part of what this story explores then is how much these differences will matter. Because while the door opens onto a first scene that shows how these two friends share a sense of wonder for the world, much of the story explores the various ways the world applies pressure on them. There is pressure of family, of work, of failing bodies, of trips to immigration lawyers, of distance. What the story asks will be left after this pressure. What of this early bond will linger for these friends? It should be noted that this is Anna's first published story, and we are so happy to have it in AGNI 97. Please join me in welcoming Anna Mazhirov.
Thank you, Amber, for that lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be reading tonight and to have my first publication be in AGNI. I'll be reading an excerpt from Colors that is in AGNI 97. Lyubov has to take a job and does, a hard one. She works as a home attendant for a very sick woman and rarely has time off. The parents still work and work again. Uliana hasn't started school yet, so is sent to subsidized daycare where a little boy laughs and punches her in the stomach when she gets her cot for quiet hour. Other times she stays in the apartment alone. Today is a rare occasion. She is with the mama, watching her roll dough on the flour table. Uliana is amazed by the pretty display and the mama's skillful hands. She knows better than to ask if she too can press the teacup to make circles in the dough. The mama places a spoonful of potato mash into each circle. Uliana ducks under the table and comes out the other side, leaning her face to smell the filling. Ulia, move. Uliana goes back under the table and sits, holding the legs of a red plastic stool. When she sees the mama's slippers facing away, she reaches up to the table, feeling for the edges of the dough. You think I can't see you? Uliana withdraws her hands. The mama kneels down and stretches to kiss Uliana all over her face with a delicious smacking. Uliana squints, but she likes it. The mama straightens up and carefully starts pinching the dough closed. I need to have a very serious talk with you, Uliana. Come out. Uliana lifts the tablecloth and looks up. Papa and I have made a decision. After yesterday, remember how you were acting yesterday? Papa and I talked. Do you know what a kinderlog is? Uliana shakes her head, stretching the tablecloth across her forehead. It's this kind of place. It's where parents send really bad children or orphans nobody wants. There, the masters train you to do your chores, to be obedient. They're very strict. Uliana keeps looking up. Papa and I are planning to send you there. Uliana drops the tablecloth, raising a small cloud of flour. She watches the dust fall without blinking. You don't believe me? I already called this morning when you were sleeping. They're ready for you. Climb out. No, don't send me. Why shouldn't we? Is it now? Tomorrow. We'd have to leave you there, and who knows when we'd come back. It's very far away. Would you visit me? They don't let visits, or Prince Polo wafers, or TV. Do they hit with the belt there too? Two? What do you mean two? The mama snatches up the tablecloth and peers down. You don't know what that is. Believe me, you'll see. No, Uliana shrieks. She bursts out from under the table. Please, mama, please. She pulls down on the mama's neck and sobs all her warm, dripping despair onto the mama's face. The mama laughs. Don't send me. Will you be a good little girl? I promise, please, she cries, please. Okay. Not now, but maybe later. We'll see. The mama smiles. The kitchen resumes its earlier silence, except for the running faucet as the mama washes a dish. Uliana quietly slinks away. As soon as she turns on the TV, she is free to go into the nature show instead of being here and now. The episode is about pandas. There is no chasing. The panda eats bamboo even though it can eat meat. Uliana finds its black and white face frightening. The panda climbs a tree. The panda suns itself in the tree. Uliana is uninspired by this animal. The green, pointy mountains look more foreign than the grasslands Uliana is intimate with. And the way the panda eats the bamboo is unappetizing. Nothing like a red-stained face licking its chops. The panda eats day and night to get enough calories, sometimes while lying on its back, half asleep. It doesn't look real to Uliana. It looks like it's wearing a costume, like on Barney. It also reminds her of a dog from the park that the papa called Chow Chow. Uliana would love to have a dog, but not a Chow Chow. The apartment intercom buzzes. Who is it? Uliana asks, running into the kitchen. Luba, the mama says, pressing the button for the building entrance. Will she live with us again? She's coming for lunch. Uliana does not remember the day Lyubov left. She hasn't even remembered to miss her. But now suddenly she feels an ecstatic buoyancy where there's been gray. Uliana rushes out the door and onto the landing and sees Lyubov walking up the stairs. Uliana springs forward, jumping onto Lyubov with a hug. Oh, how I've missed you too, Lyubov says as she crumples under the sudden weight and lands her knee hard on the stone floor. The mama starts shouting, so Uliana breaks their embrace and moves away. It's all right, Lyubov smiles. You're bleeding, the mama yells. What an awful girl. Uliana sees the thin streams of red trickling down Lyubov's knee and starts to cry. And why are you crying? The mama asks. She was overexcited. It's all right, Lyubov says, straightening up, slinging her rucksack over her shoulder and smoothing her shorts. Come, I'll charge some water. We'll apply it to my knee and you can keep the rest for when you need it. Shh, no more crying. Lyubov opens her arms. Uliana is scared, but Lyubov pulls her close, so they walk in hugging, facing each other completely. In the kitchen, Lyubov takes an alcohol-soaked napkin from the mama and dabs at the blood. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? The mama asks. Lyubov worked so hard and came on her one day off to see us, and look what you did. Lyubov's feet, crisscrossed with pink lines from her sandal straps, are more swollen than they used to be, and the crescents of flesh above her knees look puffy. Uliana wasn't thinking when she jumped on her. The mama shakes her head at Uliana. You aren't that little anymore. Do you have a large bottle? Lyubov asks, preferably glass. Once Lyubov has a full container of tap water, she holds it between her hands and starts speaking firmly, but almost inaudibly. Uliana can't make out what she's saying. I'll use some of the water now on my knee, but let the rest of it sit undisturbed for 7 hours, Lyubov says to the mama. The reaction has started. Let it finish. Here, place it on this towel. That's a good color for it to charge on. Uliana wonders what reaction, and could Lyubov really have changed the water when she did so little to it? How did you do that? Uliana asks. What did you say? I'll show you when you're older. When Uliana is older, no one has kept track of Lyubov, busy with their own labor, so Uliana never learns how to charge water. This is the last time the friends see each other. Years later, Uliana asks the mama if she remembers how Lyubov did it. You believe in that, she replies. It's unnatural. Thank you, everyone.
So it is my pleasure, and I actually mean that sincerely, to introduce the next reader, Maristed, who possesses, in my view, kind of just a wonderfully cosmopolitan CV. This cherry picking a little, she has studied in Germany. She has translated for AGNI the poetry of both Paul Celan and Ingeborg Bachmann. She has published 3 novels and a story collection. She lives often in Paris, and from Paris has, over the years, filed all sorts of wonderful documentary accounts of what is going on. Tonight, and this, well, I guess I need to say this personally, I am extremely wowed by the essay that's in the issue and that Kai will be reading from, which rarely, I mean, it actually does deep and full justice to the emotional complexity of a great loss. It is the loss of her father. It is faceted, self-questioning, it's open, it's refracted. And I can't help but jealously wonder if anyone will ever see me that way. And it's the kind of thing you hope for, you know, in retrospect, once you're on the other side, that somebody would do that kind of portrait or whatever we call it. But Kai, come on up, welcome.
This is good. People can hear me. Thank you so much, Stan. I'm blushing. I will just say that I did not set out with this essay to write any sort of paean to my father. I wanted to keep myself out of the story as much as possible in describing arc of a life that I was far more privy to, certainly than anyone else, and certainly than anyone else still living. So actually, I could read the title and just sit down again, because it encapsulates. The title is An Iwo Jima Marine's Excellent Buddhist Funeral. And I'm dedicating this to Andre Dubus, the great American short story writer, who was a mentor of mine and did wonders to improve my style and my honesty is word. The raw pine coffin battles in silence with the polished mahogany dining table it rests on. The 6 chairs have been banished so that shuffling mourners may lean over the corpse and utter words beyond my faded Japanese. As a deceased man's firstborn, my duty is to stand in this room, a lone American beside my elegant Japanese stepmother, accepting condolences, deep bows, praise for the deceased's accomplishments, his service to the nation and to world peace. A close male associate is unabashedly crying. I never saw my father cry. Certainly, this is no occasion for my tears. The mannequin in the open coffin, with its upturned face in uncharacteristic repose, caked with rice powder and tinted with lipstick, repels me. At 85, he was as photogenic as a movie star, Alain Delon, or Sinatra, whose cool expressions my father practiced in the mirror as a boy. So he once told me with that chairman of the board grin. The corpse wears his best Agnes suit, which I picked out, but the body's invisible, drowned in flowers that we tossed in that morning, according to tradition. This fluffy pool of pink and white is the antithesis of my father's austere taste. How casually the living betray the dead. But who is betrayed? Who was he? A Midwestern country boy who invented and reinvented himself, going from fighting as a Marine through the worst of the Pacific War, thrashing through shark-infested waters, slogging through the death-trap jungles of Guam and Iwo Jima, to reigning as a centerpiece of this Tokyo wake. I am the only witness left to his complete journey, in that way too, an outsider. Tokyo is hot this May. The joggers circling the Imperial Palace swipe their sweat with rags without breaking stride. My oldest son, 6'4", himself a former Marine, flown over from the States, helped us bring the patient home from the hospital. We maneuvered the frail frame out of the small ambulance, tethered to the elevator. Then Buddy carried him into the air-conditioned condo. The patient wasn't discharged because he was terminal, although riddled with cancer, like a whelk with sea worms. But because the nurses rebelled, they refused to tend one more day to this terrorizing skeletal gaijin who bellowed and cursed in strongly accented Japanese while lurching down the corridors nearly naked. His condo, 10 luxurious rooms mere blocks from the palace, stocked with books, whiskey, and cognac. He'd been away for 5 weeks. When he saw the servant woman, yes, devoted, his wife, evincing emotion by virtue of her very restraint, his 2 well-groomed stepdaughters, my younger half-sister with her brother. He is no blood relation, but the sick man paid for his college, so there's a bond. And above all, the tiny brindle, beribboned dog, whose wriggling ecstasy could not be more honest. The man broke into a sweet smile, almost saccharine, free of sarcasm. That new smile made me shiver. A small-town Wisconsin kid gets to Iwo Jima with the 3rd Marine Division is no mystery. It's the root of our national glory stories. A high school graduate at 16, the boy who would become my father, signed up with his mother's permission Impressed by his IQ score, the Marines urged him toward officers' school, but he insisted on fighting with the guys. After 4 weeks of boot camp, normally 8, but shortened to backfill the massive hemorrhage at Jarheads, he shipped to Guam. Did he, like his brothers, hate the treacherous Japs who bombed Pearl Harbor? What was his war? He never told us. Our friends' dads puffed themselves up telling combat stories. He merely said, war is dirty, not a topic for kids. He called himself a lucky SOB who'd won the crapshoot. His platoon was decimated. 9 out of 10 men lost. His left leg always ached in bad weather. He kept a small trunk containing a green USMC blanket, which we dragged to the beach, along with his impeccable uniform, his Purple Heart, a sharpshooter's pin, and no stories. Return to the Tokyo condo, home, sunlight, books, supplied with enough blue morphine sticks to fell a herd of elephants. My father lay pillow propped. Yuchon, the Yorkie named after an imperial prince, licked his face with a curly pink tongue, then settled on his chest. No one shooed away this privileged favorite. I perched on the sofa's edge behind my father's head, one arm cradling him, hand cupped over his left breast, concentrated, aware of each second, yet with no sense of time passing. We were mostly women. My stepmother, stepsisters, house sister, and maid. Someone poured steaming tea that cooled untouched in artisan clay cups. There was only my son for male company. I don't know what he did or what he saw, but I know some things he learned in the Marines. How to curse the rice in one sentence. Fearful homophobia, meaning that any man he disliked was light in loafers. Archvillain Dick Nixon included. He was addicted to discipline, hard work, stoicism. If some of this toughness came from growing up fatherless from age 10, it dovetailed well with Marine Corps culture. I'd love to know what his nickname had been. Every jarhead has him. His grandson, whose German last name started with a Wallen, was dubbed the Nazi. No doubt spoken with joshing affection. He insisted on order. Needle-sharp pencils lay lined up by length on his desk. Every countertop and floor was mopped daily. This is the key to survival. Knowing your gear, your oiled gun, ammo already at hand. He shared the Japanese admiration of plain objects, a teacup, a stone garden, a dancer's gesture. He found his aesthetic instinct embodied across the ocean, a kind of homecoming. He didn't come on to the States, though, not for a while. As the war wound down, he went through a quick course in Japanese and on to Hiroshima as a member of the US Strategic Bombing Survey, whatever the hell that was supposed to mean. His task was to conduct interviews with survivors. All he told us was, they bust us in at daybreak and out before night. Night, they thought, was dangerous. His designation, expendable interpreter. Perched behind him on the sofa, I couldn't see his expression, only the vulnerable crown of his head, where a few strands of crystalline hair hung on. He kept enough hair to satisfy vanity until the enemy within started metastasizing my command. Out to consume him in earnest. Ruchun panted, paws forward on the man's chest, as if he too needed to register each rise of the ribs. My father, the lifelong heartbreaker. 3 wives and God knows how many mistresses. Men fell for him too. Straight men, power brokers, old university friends, all eager to hear his ideas, to debate him, to earn an ironic word of assent. Women flew halfway around the world for a hotel weekend, cuckolding husbands who were sometimes those friends of his and who remained his friends. How do I know this? My mother, falling down drunk, hurled accusations, punching his indifferent chest. But I knew things already, having discovered a love letter, the only book he had taken to war, a thin hardcover of The Wasteland, stained with brownish spots. I calculated by its date that the letter was written while my mother was pregnant with me. Later, when I was a teenager, he himself referred to this or that conquest as if sharing his exploit with a buddy, but boasting to me instead. Of course, I was flattered. I refused to imagine what kind of lover my father was.
Good evening, you all. My name is Esteban Rodriguez, and I am the Associate Poetry Editor. Thank you all so much for being here. Every one of us has had a moment where we have looked up in the sky and seen either a single cloud or a cluster of clouds form the shape of a unique thing. While more often than not, the clouds resemble a cuddly animal, a dog, a cat, a baby elephant, perhaps. There are times when they are shaped into an ominous figure or into a strange face that leaves the viewer unsure if they should regard the suspended droplets and particles as either sinister or miraculous. Clouds in all their shapes and sizes make us feel a certain way. And for the speaker in Kim Garcia's poem in our current issue, Mamadas are pouch-like cloud structures. The Mamadas clouds, or mammary clouds as they are sometimes called, stir a myriad of feelings about motherhood, femininity, the complicated nature of naming a thing, and how one sees themselves in relation to the world at large. I couldn't help but think about Kim's earlier work when this poem came my way. And there is one line from the poem Southerner Babe and her debut collection, Madonna Magdalene, that I return to. The speaker in that poem says, "I have a hand in the world as we perceive it." Kim's poetry reminds us that we have a say in how we perceive and experience the world. And that say leads to a place where one never has to long for a more complete self. Mamadas clouds often form before a severe thunderstorm, messengers of the weather to come. But they also form after a storm. And that gloomy presence off in the distance is how I read Kim's poetry. The storm has passed us, and clear, calm skies are on the horizon. It is my honor to introduce Kim Garcia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. He's not up there anymore, but he's here, I hope. Thank you so much to Esteban. If you haven't had a chance to get to know his poems yet, there's such a blend of tenderness and witness. Can you hear it okay? Thank you, Ruth. Magician, the tech magician. I'm so grateful to be here. It's my first live reading since COVID. You know, in person, real people. I took out my reading outfit and discovered it was full of moth holes. Yeah. I felt metaphor was pulling my life along in ways that I wasn't so sure of. So I'm going to read a couple poems here. Well, a few. And the first one, you can hear some of the longing that I felt during all that time with where I missed human touch, human face, so many things, so much. So this is called Petition. I am starving for compassion's stuttering, impulsive hand to the shoulder, a warm palm, awkward hug, gestures simple and ephemeral that have gone out of the world, like the trusting interest of the looks of children in public squares. What is that dog doing? Why is that man eating a sandwich? Why do bike spinning spokes disappear? I miss the world, strange and marvelous. The way a child learns the rules of engagement, mother looking over, assessing me, nodding smile. Yes, another stranger you can trust. There will be many. Go play. Trust their touch. Trust your own longing to be touched. It will not lead you wrong. Tell me your dark story. I will tell you mine. Let's keen and shudder and grieve. Soak the ground with it, as we must. But then let's call back the flock of gentle hands that raised us up, settled us in our cots, touched us like they loved us even for a moment. I beg you. And this is the poem that was graciously accepted by AGNI, and I feel a bit midwife by Bill. You have many questions for me, and I then had questions for myself. So this is Mamatus, which in my head I was pronouncing Mamatus. All the Latin here is made up. It means strange. So Mamatus are pouch-like cloud structures. Like mama ghosts, you can't hang on to, begging for something impossible. Oranges that don't sting your chapped lips, orbs that burn in a January bowl and peel with small sensors of zest spurt, inner life of something uncatchable. A squirrel perhaps, shape-changing furry nimbus. No cloud lasts that long, even storms, those big angry mothers threatening all mother threats that never quite hail. Give me a Mamatus, a sloth mother, all udder and dream milk, like the moon milk my daughter called for at full bulge, and the parts in the book I read in lower and lower registers until I was a murmur mother, Mamatus infinitus, drift of sound without edge, a pouch that dream Latin made, to carry mothers to a quiet sky where you never miss them. A lot of mothering going on in my mind right now. I'm just finishing up a collection I'm calling Mater, so it's everywhere, everywhere. So this one's called Beneath the Ice, Huron River, 1988. Oh, and I realized my son and daughter-in-law are now pregnant, so mothering everywhere. Beneath the ice. I could hear the river. I lay on the ice with the stroller beside me and allowed myself to hear it rushing and be afraid. I'm listening now. A service of loss. The early morning parishioners, bleary with loves torn away. Don't take me, I say to that river. I'm used to the lack of love, used to grieving it. Everything on that day was laughing at me. The child who would grow up and canoe that river, break his heart, break mine, love again. Ice already yielding to what it could not still. During COVID, I had the pleasure of entering these meditation chapels on Zoom. And while Zoom in a lot of ways feels like pretty thin gruel, in this case, it was like a wall of warm faces every morning at 6:30 a.m. And they started telling these stories. And because everyone was in a certain place, telling these beautiful stories. So I ended up with a lot of poems that I had to ask their permission to use things they had said. Thin places. You guys know this concept of thin places, like there's places between the spiritual and the living world. So thin places in autumn. Somewhere in Ireland, in Oregon, a mountain spring maiden outside Inverness. A Shinto shrine in the hills outside Nara where pilgrims get lost. relighting the old flames under stone houses guarded by boxes. A friend says once she was buying bologna, and a stranger explained all the variants in the aisle. He was like the elder of bologna, he says. And when she got home, sliced that meat, took out mustard, bread, she remembered her mother in the kitchen, slicing bologna. A good mother, so present that it was like a visitation. You think, she says, the thin places are far away, but they might be right there in the store aisle, in the kitchen. She held her story up like a lamp that could be lit by, just listening. The sun came in while they were speaking, and flamed the Norway maples. Greedy trash trees that they are, they burned. Last poem. How to begin again. Begin with a heartbeat, small, like a pint jar of buttermilk, churned by a jumping 5-year-old, who's singing catchy songs she doesn't quite understand. You take a piece of take a piece of meat in time to her red tennis shoes hitting the smooth spot in that corner of the playground where they took down the tetherball poles, and all the kids forgot how to play a 4-square. So it's perfect for jumping up and down and singing without being corrected about things like words, as though it mattered when you have a jar of buttermilk that might, any minute now, become butter. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shuchi, and I'm the associate editor at AGNI. So for our editors and our readers who are at home joining us on Zoom, we have a full house here. It's very exciting to see a packed room, and thank you all. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing our musical guest, Charles Coe. Charles is a poet, a prose writer, a vocalist, a storyteller, a passionate advocate for the arts, and a dear friend of this magazine. He is the author of a novella and 4 books of poetry, most recently Purgatory Road, which was published by Leapfrog Press earlier this month. He sings blues, funk, and gospel, and recites his original poetry for the Symphony of Crickets Ensemble, organized by reed player and composer Ken Field. He has also sung with the New Orleans-style jazz and funk group Field's Revolutionary Snake Ensemble, and he plays and teaches the didgeridoo. Please join me in welcoming Charles Coe.
I'm going to sing a song I wrote called Black and Gold Blues, which I usually do with the band. They're invisible here behind me tonight. And I'm going to, well, I'll just say a little bit about the song. It's inspired by the New Orleans blues there, St. James Infirmary, that tradition of music. And I'm going to start off with this thing. This is a didgeridoo. You've probably seen them as a long stick. This one has chambers, kind of like an intestine. And if you stretch it out, it'll be about 4 feet long. Very handy to put in your backpack. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sin. Oh, forgive me for my sins. The lights in here are getting dim. I wish they would up again. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sin. Tell that gal of mine, said goodbye. Won't you tell that gal of mine I said goodbye? I hope she finds a better man, one who best. Won't you tell that gal of mine I said goodbye? Send someone to look beneath my bed. You better send someone to look beneath my bed. 'Cause there's a box of black and gold. It's got some things it should not hold. No, you better send someone to look beneath my bed. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sin. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sin. Just can't seem to catch my breath. Yes, I ain't got much. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sin. Oh Lord, forgive me for my sin. Oh Lord, forgive me for my.
Wow. I forget exactly what the occasion was, but Charles and I were talking by Zoom. This was a couple of years back, right in the middle of all the lockdown and everything, and singing came up. And he said, you didn't know I sang? I said, no, I didn't know you sang. I always known you as a poet and as a great guide for so many writers and organizations in Boston. And he said, I'll sing one for you. And we just sat there. I just listened to this a cappella emerge from Zoom. I didn't know that a Zoom space could become what Charles gave me that day. So he just gave it to all of us. Thank you. So I'm introducing Ishion Hutchinson. Colin Channer and Kwame Dawes, both of whom by coincidence have work in AGNI 97 also, founded the Calabash Literary Festival in Jamaica. And at, I believe, 19 years old, along came Ishion Hutchinson. It seems to me that the career that grew from that moment, the writing, thinking, and teaching, would justify the founding of Calabash all by itself. Ishion is the author of 2 poetry collections, Far District and House of Lords and Commons. And he has embarked on a series of essays, one of which Unbending Progress appears in the new issue. It's an associative exploration that reads poems by Charles McKay and Kamau Braithwaite as it calls on Baldwin to help unpack or unbend the ever hopeful, ever premature white American claim of progress. Ishion has won the National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry, a Guggenheim Fellowship, a Whiting Award, and the Wyndham Campbell Prize, among many other honors. He directs the creative writing program at Cornell, and we are very honored to have him reading for us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Can you hear me? Okay. So I will read from the essay Bill mentioned, and I will be reading from the sort of the last section of the essay. As Bill says, it's an odd gathering of various poets and writers. The essay mostly focuses on a poem by Claude McKay, one of his sonnets. But this portion is a memory, really, of seeing Kamau Braithwaite, the great Barbadian poet, in New York City one day. And so I'll read that section for you. I remember seeing Kamau Braithwaite in Washington Square Park in New York City. He was dressed in a dark overcoat, and his signature knitted blue tam floated on his head like a small bolt of immemorial Caribbean cloud. He was standing still in front of Garibaldi's bronze statue in the slanting mid-afternoon light of autumn. I had never seen him before in the city. My first impulse was to run over and greet him. We had met a few times in Jamaica and had exchanged emails. But something stopped me. He was not looking at Garibaldi's statue. He was contemplating it. The more I lingered and watched, the more I thought something else was going on. He seemed to be communing with the statue. Leaves and trash swirled at his feet. People passed him by. He didn't move, or moved so slightly I couldn't make out that he did. Uncertain what to do, I sat on a bench adjacent from where he stood, and I realized that though Braithwaite's face was tilted upwards to the statue, his focus seemed to be on the marble pedestal, plain but for Garibaldi's name and dates of birth and death. I felt I needed to be there with Braithwaite, for him, that my unplanned witnessing of this moment wasn't a coincidence, which could be explained away by the fact of us being in the city at the same time. Over the next 2 years that I lived in the city, I never saw him again. I felt inexplicably that I was seeing a shadow of reality to come, like what Keats said of Adam's dream in a letter to a friend. What was Braithwaite contemplating? Did he see something or someone non finito straining out of the marble pedestal? Could it be a radical dislocation, to use a Braithwaite-like slash word, this with a slash location? It was and remains unknowable. But his intense attention to the statue or the pedestal, who knows, made me think of isolation. The isolation of the poet from his Caribbean, at this moment, standing in the heart of the new imperial center. To give even a fraction of the bewildering set of implications which come with such isolation for a Caribbean poet would be like hearing a voice speaking out of the marble. But it remains silent about alienation and the pain of empires, new and old. Whatever Braithwaite was contemplating or communed with, he brought to it a Creole way of seeing, a Creole way of seeing. And here was the obvious and misdefining. I was seeing this moment in a Creole way too. I was an acolyte to it, off stage on the wings of a ceremony I didn't understand. This was something I couldn't have received at a poetry workshop table or in a lecture hall. In fact, I doubt I would have been as mesmerized if I'd seen Brathwaite this way in Jamaica or Barbados. Struck for sure, but not as mesmerized. Here, I saw no exhibition of an eccentricity. I saw a great Caribbean poet and thinker locked deep in a penumbra of his own thoughts, isolated. I remained watching for however long Brathwaite stood seemingly motionless in front of Garibaldi's statue. He stayed for a long while, which in retrospect felt even longer. When he finally left, simply turning to his right and walking off under the Washington Square arch, as if evading believer, me, like the weeping man in Les Murray's poem, An Absolutely Ordinary Rainbow. I remained seated, grounded by some kind of radiance lingering in the space Brathwaite left when he departed. Indeed, like the man in Murray's poem, Brathwaite was to me not words, but grief, not messages, but sorrow, hard as the earth, sheer, present as the sea. With those lines of Murray in my head, I tried to chalk a parenthesis around my enigmatic sighting of Brathwaite in a sonnet sequence I wrote some 12 months later. Here is one of those sonnets. Man's hardest divorce is from the sea. He hears in the village's meridian the sea lices dividing eggs, the tree frogs plea, losing their accents to the American babble, through the amnesic marble arch, past Garibaldi's half-sheeted sword. Their sounds with fifes and white flags march. The leading professorial frog bellows, words you dim-wit fireflies. Light up history, for we've been in the dark, now we're in New York. All in his head, this malarial memory sickens him. He shivers like a stork. Worse now, the bridal sea recedes in foam. At every corner, leaf-wet whisper, go home. The sonnet here is an attempt to, in my sonnet, the visible reality of that moment reassembles itself around an ironic prosopopeia, an imaginary carnival in which the Caribbean sounds through the city, Brathwaite's dislocation, that any Caribbean poet outside of the Caribbean must endure. In the sonnet form, with its bipartite structure of octave and sestet, is the sonnet form, with its bipartite structure of octave and sestet, inherently the form of exile and home. I distrust this little song of Italy, invented about a century and a half before Columbus's 1492 voyage to the Caribbean. Yet, surrendering to its demands is one of the ways I sense that my language grows a formal hectoring pitch to love, to an ethos of what Brathwaite calls a process, not a product. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Hello to all. Can you hear me? Yes. I am Julia Brown, editor-at-large on the fiction team. I've spent the past weeks reading Courtney Sender's debut collection of linked stories titled, In Other Lifetimes, All I've Lost Comes Back to Me. The collection opens with the title story, in which the lonely main character has a wish fulfilled. All of the men who have left her show up one day on her doorstep. Yes, all of them, as the first line of the story tells us. Quote, "Here we are," they say. "You are our great missed chance. We didn't know it, but we've missed you all our lives. Somewhere in the pit of us, we have always been screaming." The main character is catapulted into inner conflict and deep questioning, and the reader follows. What happens when we finally get what we wish for? How are we to contend with our need for love and relationship when those things don't show up in the way we anticipate? It's a smart writer indeed who knows that there can still be residual longing even after we acquire the thing we want most. Courtney Sender is that smart writer. She is sensitive and attuned to that gulf where yearning leads. And she knows that even in our individual lonelinesses, we're never really alone. We inherit our forebears and we inherit from our forebears. We carry that inheritance forward. The stories in this collection are angular and insightful, with doses of fabulism, humor, and absurdity that make these narratives even more compelling and more truthful. I encourage everyone to read that title story, or The Docent, or Only Things We Say, or the story that graces the pages of AGNI 85, An Angel on Stilts. Better yet would be to read the collection from beginning to end, as I did, to feel that satisfying jolt of recognition at the threads stitched through the stories, even as the characters and settings change. By the book's final page, these narratives have braided together to demonstrate how we answer histories in the present with our bodies and with our innermost hopes. I'm thankful to Courtney for this searing, fearless debut, and we are all fortunate to have her with us tonight. Please welcome Courtney Sender.
Thank you so much, Julia. That was so beautiful. Thank you to Sven and to Bill and Shuji for having me today. I am going to read from the story that graced the pages of AGNI a few years ago. And it's very special for me because when I first moved here to Boston and Baltimore, within a few months, my story, An Angel on Stilts, was taken by AGNI and published, and I got to read it several years ago, so it feels like coming full circle here to read it from my book now. An Angel on Stilts. Once I met an angel on stilts. She was standing next to the seesaw in the park, her neck in the clouds. It was the first day of spring. She wore long jeans under her wings and a t-shirt with an elastic hem. She and her stilts were the gray of old white shoes. She made me think of you. I remember you so well, my friend, so tall, so ready to swoop in and save me from behind the scenes and then pretend you didn't, that you don't even exist the way angels do. You used to call your friends and have them waiting at the taxi stand when I got too cold in the Baltimore winter and caught a southbound train to a city I didn't know. You'd buy an air mattress and have the delivery girl deliver it and set up the pillows when some guy you thought I shouldn't sleep with asked if I had a guest bed. You'd drop a 20 in the mailbox when there were dinners you weren't there to take me out to. You're dead now, or just gone. One's no different than the other. To the unloved, the beloved must become dead. She who is friends with the man who didn't love her either never really loved him or loves him still. I love you still, my friend. I have been looking for you for 11 years. So when I saw the angel on stilts, her head up in the clouds, I said, how small does the world look to you from up there? Her wingtips hung a yard above the treetops. She pinched her forefinger and thumb a 1/4 inch apart to show how small my head seemed. She pinched the whole park to the span of 2 inches. She was operating at a different scale than you and me. I was thrilled. I asked her, could she see you someplace down here, and I described you, but you are 11 years older now, and who knows how much more sad. Because I couldn't see her eyes while she did me the favor of searching, I decided she was you a bit. I decide this about people sometimes when I'm missing you the most. She couldn't find you. I said it was okay that you'd left a while ago and forgotten where I lived was all. When I'm missing you the most, this is the story I let myself believe. Because I'd decided she was you a bit, I asked her, would you kiss me? You see, you never did. She said she hasn't kissed anybody since her little baby daughter, and besides, she's not a real angel. These legs are just long stilts, these wings are paper mache and glitter. She wears this getup because that daughter of hers died. But before then, boy, did the girl love it when they played dress up in the park. And now she has nobody to play dress up for. I hugged her around the stilt, knowing she couldn't feel me. The seesaw tottered. The world is so full of real sadness. Sometimes I am mad at you because you only invented mine. You could have just loved me back the way I wanted, and then I wouldn't have to carry a good as dead man like a stone on my back the way this woman carries wings. I love your dress up, I told the angel on stilts, those feathers, that height. Truly, she asked me. From the tone of her voice, I thought she smiled. Truly, I said. But I lied a bit. I miss you. Sometimes it feels like there is nothing true to say except those words. Once, before you went away, I met a real angel. He was sitting in the first floor window ledge of a bookstore typing on his laptop. This was January 11 years ago when I was young and a little bit beautiful and living next door to you. I had just taught my class this little fable, Angel Levine. Angel Levine, ooh, it's off. Thank you. I had just taught my class this little fable, Angel Levine, which had been taught to me as magic, but had since grown too outdated to be anything but history. I was walking past the bookstore deciding I would never teach that story again. The angel on the window ledge said, "Wow, it's you." I was cold and didn't know him. I ignored his call. The angel on the window ledge said, "I wrote a poem about you." I raised my scarf over my mouth and said nothing. You and I both knew to ignore people who sang songs or painted pictures or told fortunes. Once an astronomer in coattails on our street corner had told us if we paid $1, we could look through his telescope and see Mars. I had wanted to see Mars, but didn't want to pay $1. We kept on walking to the laundromat. Then on the way back home, the astronomer gave a little bow and said, "Okay, for her it's free." And I looked at you wondering if you'd slipped him $1, but you looked away like you always did when I tried to pin your kindness on you. So I peered through the telescope at a piece of black construction paper pasted to the aperture, a little red circle sharpied in the middle of a whiteout sky. Afterward, you laughed and clapped and insisted I'd really seen Mars. The angel on the window ledge said, "Years ago." "What?" I said, stopping in front of him, even though I didn't want to stop, because back then, whenever I was going home to you. "I wrote a poem about you years ago," said the angel on the window ledge. The thing is, he didn't look like an angel, not like my angel on stilts. He looked like a middle-aged man. But the other thing is, and this was why I stopped, that the story I'd just taught, Angel Levine, which I have not taught since, is about an angel who appears to a Jewish guy who doesn't believe. And the Jewish guy is wrong not to believe, of course. "Here," he said, and turned the laptop around on his knee so I could see the screen. "I'll prove it." And he showed me this website of his, which had an outdated rounded font look to it and a clear publication date of 5 years earlier, on which he'd post a sonnet titled "Jewish Girl Full of Hope," about a girl who had just taught Angel Levine and was walking down the street in the cold when she stopped to talk to an angel on a bookstore window ledge about this man who loved her but would never tell her. Never tell her, I said. I pulled my scarf up tight around my nose. I didn't like this prophecy, which made me want more than anything not to believe it. Well, he said, unless. And he clicked down the webpage just under Jewish Girl Full of Hope to another title, Neighbor Boy Waking Up. My heart stuttered. I reached out, scrolled down, but the angel on the window ledge pulled the laptop away. For him, he said. I sprinted the 8 blocks home. I rang your doorbell 4 times short, our code for come down now with your coat already zipped, and raced with you back to the bookstore. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Kwan Dobbs, and I'm senior poetry editor of AGNI. Whenever my senses need to be recharged, my imagination throttled out of some holding pattern, I turn to Danez Smith's poetry for a truth supernova. A literary, lyrical, virtuoso, genius prophet, they're my go-to jet fuel, one of US American poetry's most essential guiding lights. It's a deeply personal honor to introduce Smith, a poet whose ancestor-riveted craft transmits, quote, what world awaits at the use of my hands, and holds us in that world with a new bravery. The author of 4 poetry collections, including Bluff, forthcoming in 2024, Homie and Don't Call Us Dead, all from Grey Wolf Press. Smith received the Forward Prize, the Minnesota Book Award in Poetry, the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Poetry, and the Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and has been a finalist for the NAACP Image Award in Poetry, the National Book Critics Circle Award, and the National Book Award. Former co-host of the Webby-nominated podcast Verses and a member of the Dark Noise Collective, they live in Minneapolis near their people. Please welcome Danez Smith.
Holy shit, Jennifer. Wow, that was touching. Thank you so much for that seeing, for that introduction, for choosing these poems, for the invitation. Thank you to the whole AGNI team. Y'all put together a great journal. You know, I gotta put my little credit card to keep these things coming to my house because they're very good. Thank you to all the readers tonight, in person and digitally. That was incredible. Ishion, I can't wait to read the rest of that essay. Such a brilliant excerpt. And I got some books to buy too, because apparently y'all got novels and short stories and all kinds of things. All right, so I'm gonna read the poems from the journal, plus one other one also from the journal that I didn't write that I think is in conversation with something I did. All right, so this first poem, it's a series of 5 little poems. It's called Bug Chaser. A bug chaser in kink culture. Is it kink culture? I don't know. Weirdos call themselves bug chasers when it's a person who has like a fetish for people who are HIV positive. And so they chase the bug. All right, bug chaser. 1, termite. So I, the tree, the home, the damned boat hollowed. I thought the fire, the father, or the sea would end me. Not this. Hunger, need, teeth. 2, caterpillar. What chrysalis this? I crawled the earth, belly down, mouth lead, seeking touch. Now my blood croons these maroon cocoons. I munch the meds to delay the wings. 3, ant. Sugar in my blood, they said, sugar. They said with bitter mugs, now bit by bit, to the dirt, I split, I drip sugar. They called me and soon I'll be colony bound. Once sugar, now the queen. 4, ladybug. But he said what made me beautiful was what marked me. He kissed me, but I couldn't survive the weight of his touch. But it wasn't my body. It was the blood he wanted and licked. 5, fly. Summer, and all this black buzzing at my ears, trying to get inside and touch what's already dead. I'm ready, angels of meat, carry me in your mouths to him. This next poem is called, it takes its title from a Curtis Mayfield song called Don't Worry, If There's a Hell Below, We're All Going to Go. And it looks like, I don't know if y'all can see, y'all got the issue. So it looks like it looks in the issue. And so it's called a sonnet chopped and screwed. I love chopped and screwed music. It's one of my favorite genres. I could like write an essay about what I think it does to like the gender of voice. So the poem, I called it that. And so the poem like tries to think about how it's written, how I think a chopped and screwed song sounds, but I'm not gonna read it super slow. Okay, I'm just gonna read the poem. Don't worry, if there's a hell below, we're all going to go. Sonnet, chopped and screwed. Among the trillions who singe, the trillions who singe, the trillions who sing, the trillions who singe, amongst the trillions who singe, but don't burn. Or are we sectioned off into our loudest sin, or by the sum, or do borders persist? Do I get to see Franny again? Do I get to see Franny again? Down there, second earth, proof of the too high, not even our mothers made it. Ain't pray hard enough. If there's a hell, we all end up the devil's abundance. You not good. I never been shit. Casually wicked, a citizen. That's how evil I be, a zit of sin. That's how measle I be. Feel me? I voted, I agreed. I voted, I agreed. I voted, I decreed. I agreed to the kill. I'm full grown, taxes paid. I built the bomb. I bloomed the cancer field under the blood. I killed Nima. I apologize when we get down to where she prayed the murder of me, my God. All right. I'm gonna skip a little bit. So I'm teaching a workshop right now, and there's a fantastic poet by the name of Siobhan Williams Shen, who happens to also be in this issue of Agni. And when I was reading their poem, I felt a lot of resonance with the last poem I'm gonna read. And so I'm gonna lift Siobhan up tonight and read their poem before I read my last one. They're an incredible poet. Check out their work, Siobhan Williams Shen, featured in this issue of Agni. The slave's descendant addresses King Cotton. You watch me harvest cotton, dresses from discount racks, pleased by my labor. You delight when I write of my grandmother's hands, and that time there seems tore a day after a day in the fields. You occupy my bed, my shirts, my country's closets. Slaves would be shamed to know their seed writes of them, wrapped in quilts made from their sweat. Ashamed to know I buy fresh sugar cane because it tastes like home. I write more. My hands shake. My tea made too sweet misses my mouth. Put more Siobhan's poetry in life. All right. So for the last poem, I am going to read a slightly edited version of the poem that appears in Agni. You know, sometimes you publish a poem and then it's on paper and in people's faces and you're like, I don't like that line. And so that's what happened. Somebody had posted it and I was like, word, not gonna go back and edit this poem. So I think this is conversation with Siobhan's poem. Most definitely think about ancestors. This is called This Universe, My Most Docile and Stunted. This universe, my most docile and stunted, weapons rounded into words, my work so undangerous. They untapped my phone, found no threat, the shame I felt. My oppressors fear me not. They see their chains working. Universe where I'm a match, head thrown back, laugh feeding the flame as old massa screams into kindling. Teach me the surprise in the middle of obedience. Give me the road to that final glee, you giggling ash. Shiver I feel, bowing my head on the street. And universe where I'm a late queen, Christ-locked and fat off Friday fishes, rumor-robed, lonely next to gray angels, I ask your late Bolta, long-avoided birth, that not yet, then, now, I need a new bravery. I don't want to live a coward's peace. Where's my mission? What worlds wait at the use of my hands? Thank y'all so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Danez almost did it for us. I thought I would finish the job if we can get it on the screen. That is the sonnet chopped and screwed. Fabulous. Thank you to everybody who's been a part of this tonight, and to our audience here and our smaller audience, mainly our masthead editors who've joined us from around the country. We had some tech problems at the beginning, and it's so worth it to be able to bring in people who could not possibly join us here in person tonight, and to have this kind of combination event happen for a large crowd at the Goethe-Institut. Thank you so much to the Goethe for hosting us and collaborating with us again and again. We are honored to have this relationship with them. Thank you to the National Endowment for the Arts, to the Mass Cultural Council, and always to our home, Boston University. Thank you, everybody. This has been beautiful. And everybody, I just wanted to let you know that we have a beautiful, I'm sorry to those listening who aren't in Boston, we have a beautiful reception right behind us here. And I hope everybody can stay and continue the conversation. Thank you.